The topic for this video is how shameless and problematic Nigeria is at this point. I first of all know you would want me to mind my business and talk about my own country, Ghana. But listen, I don't really care about what you think. And if you haven't checked in my videos, I talk more about my country than any other on this platform. But at this point, it's not just silly and problematic how miserable Nigeria is. It's becoming for all of West Africa. And if you feel agitated already for my choice of words, wait and hear the rest of all I have to say. Let's get into it. Nigeria's population is a national security threat to every neighboring and West African country. As of March this year, Nigeria's population is more than half the total population of West African countries. More than half. This means on any given day, the influx of Nigerian citizens to any West African country will easily swallow up the entire local population. This is why every country in West Africa needs to have a say in what goes on in Nigeria, on the backdrop of the fact that they like to travel, ladies and gentlemen. They like to move, and they are moving in numbers. Now, ladies and gentlemen, two major situations are making Nigeria look scary to the rest of Africa, especially the neighboring West African countries. And I said two major things. But first, let's put aside the lack of stable electricity and inflation for now. Those are regular problems everywhere that every country in Africa has to deal with. However, the two worrisome situations brewing in Nigeria, which threatens the sovereignty of other African countries, has to do with the religious extremism and poverty. Ladies and gentlemen, I need you to again hold back on the insults for now and also put down your biased glasses and hear me out for a minute before you come in. Are you aware of the number of Islamist jihadist groups operational in Nigeria as of 2025? Let me give you the list, ladies and gentlemen. It started in the year 2000 with Boko Haram, whose aim is to establish an Islamic state in Nigeria. Then the first splinter group from Boko Haram, called Ansaru, was formed in 2012. After Ansaru came the next splinter group called Islamic State West Africa Province, aka ISWAP, which started in 2016. Darul Salam also came in from the Niger Delta, and then the multiple Fulani militant groups came in. Just when we thought these groups were too many to handle for one country, then we hear of a group originally from Mali and also operational in Niger moving in to Nigeria. They are called Lakurawa. The situation appears to get worse by the days, from one bad jihadist group to a worse group. Ladies and gentlemen, is Nigeria becoming or already become the main breeding ground for all terrorist groups in Africa? What's going on here? When other countries are thinking of ways to create conducive environment to entice foreign investment, Nigeria is rather enticing terror. Let me ask you this. What conditions are making the northern part of Nigeria so enticing to these groups in the first place? Because this is where almost all of them are situated. Every day I read the news in Nigeria, I get terrified. Every time. Because the spillover of these groups will directly enter all the nearby countries. These are countries in West Africa. This may include the splinter groups moving to other countries, or the citizens of Nigeria abandoning their own homeland for another. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a serious issue that needs immediate continental concern. Nigeria is a friend of Ghana. Nigeria is a part of ECOWAS. When they are moving into your country, we cannot turn them away. But when 1 million moves in at one time, what then becomes the fate of the host nation's security, sovereignty, and economy? And this can happen on any given day, ladies and gentlemen. And what actually terrifies me is this. I don't see any real political actions or steps taken by the leadership of the country to deal with the situation. You don't hear of the presidency talk about strategies. You don't hear of governors talk plans, and senators the same. Where are the marches, ladies and gentlemen, and the demonstrations on the streets to force the hand of the government to face it head on? Where are they? It's like the fate of the people in this country is in individuals' hands. Those with the resources may hire armed officers for their personal security, and those who don't have to live carefully and away from certain hotspots. Ladies and gentlemen, is this the best Nigeria can do in their own country? Day in, day out, all we hear is kidnapping, robbery on buses and even on trains, village killings and so on. Is this ever going to change in Nigeria in the nearest possible time? Nigeria currently ranks 10 on every type of crime list in the world. Talk about cybercrime, organized crime, financial crimes, and extremism. You will find them on the top 10 list of all of them. What type of society are you building? On the criminality index on ocindex.net, you are 6th out of 193 countries, 2nd out of African countries, and number 1 in West Africa. You are ranked 19th among the least peaceful countries in the world, and nothing shows it bothers you, especially they that hold power in the country. Omanaja, what's up? When you finally get the chance to vote for a president who may bring a difference to the country, you reject it. You vote the same type of leadership in every election, and the problems continues. Why won't you try change? Why can't the people try what Ghana did? You come out in your numbers. You create your own coalition centers. You protect the ballot boxes at all costs and ensure a free and fair elections for once in your lifetime. Because if you as a regular Nigerian don't like what's going on in your home country, you have to do something about it, ladies and gentlemen. That cannot be done by anyone else but yourselves, unless it benefits you. What's the ultimate goal here? When you have chosen democracy as your system of governance and it's only making life a living hell for the majority of the people, what is the plan, ladies and gentlemen? This is disturbing. Now, on to the second situation that is of equal concern as the first. This is about the level of poverty in Nigeria. You have more than 40% of your total population living below the global poverty line of $2.15 per day. That's more than 100 million people, ladies and gentlemen. That's a national security crisis. To have more than 100 million people who don't spend up to 3,300 naira in a day is problematic for the state's economy and for the people themselves. And here is how. The 3,300 naira per day will include your transport fare in and out to work if you have one, or to school, your breakfast, your lunch, your supper for one person. And so when that's not possible for more than 100 million people, then there isn't much these 100 million people are doing to contribute to the economy of the local state. People must work, produce, buy, pay taxes, and all of that, which runs the local economy. And that explains why countries whose citizens spend more do better than countries which citizens spend less. This is economic fact. Economic activities thrives off of demand and supply, buying and selling. And so when purchasing power drops, supply power is affected. Ladies and gentlemen, in addition to that is the low rate at which Nigeria's economy is growing. With the kind of population you have and expected to have in the next 10 years, your economy cannot survive on a single-digit economic growth in a fiscal year. Currently in Nigeria, your country is growing on an average rate of 3.4%. 3.4%. That's super slow for your size. You need to move that thing to more than 10% per annum and sustain it over a decade to meet the surge ahead. Your country's population is projected to hit 290 million in the next 10 years, and that's adding at least 50 million more people to what you have now. So the pace you are running will have to change immediately. From 2020 to 2023, the average unemployment rate was over 39% of the capable workforce until last year, when the new administration by Tinubu had to revise the method for calculating to reduce it to now 5.3%. Whether that is accurate or not, the reality of the people hasn't changed, and that's a huge problem. Ghana and every other country for that matter have our own problems to deal with, but at least not with the numbers Nigeria comes with. The very fact that these two situations I've just described has a direct impact on all neighboring countries is what has triggered me to do this video, because the rise and success of Nigeria is in the interest of all African countries. In the same way, the fall and demise of Nigeria is detrimental to all African countries, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, whether it offends your pride as a successful Nigerian who doesn't like your country being talked about in a negative light or not, that's not only up to them or you to determine what others may say, because once there is a problem in your country, everyone will feel the impact. Just like it said, when Nigeria sneezes, every African country catches cold. Folks, I want to read your opinion on this matter without insult. So let's hear from you. And